Welcome to Business Mentorship Keeping It Real, where we feature entrepreneurs and enterprise leaders who participate in our guest blog found on shareyourstories.online. Our guest is Dale Stoneman, who's an enterprise leader and representative for a legal subscription service providing services for small business owners. We're going to discuss how Dale, as a representative for entrepreneurs, providing companies with options for Plan B with peace of mind throughout the journey. And Dale joins us from Burlington, Ontario. Welcome.
Hi, Trish. Thanks so much for having me on the call.
I'm so looking forward to our conversation because, if there's one thing as a small business owner that we struggle with is if we need expert advice and we have no idea where to go for it. So maybe you could start by giving us a little bit of an idea as to what LegalShield is and the type of services that you provide.
Sure, I'd love to do that. So LegalShield has actually been around for 50 years, and it started in the United States because a gentleman was in a car accident and the lady decided to sue him. So he went looking for equal justice under the law, and of course he couldn't find it. I started with LegalShield 25 years ago, kind of similar. I'd been through a legal situation, cost me a lot of money, and I thought, well, that makes sense. So what I like about it is that we have a law firm in each state or province that looks after our members. And so you can call in and ask a question about anything going on in your personal life or for your business. They want to make sure you get your wills and powers of attorney done. That's something else that's covered under the plan. And for businesses, I think it's so important for a business owner to have it because they're always running into things that they should be talking to a lawyer about. But because it's a financial decision, Trish, they don't do that.
So true.
Now, all of a sudden, I'm giving them an option where for a flat monthly fee, and we have a 3-tiered program, so we can pick which one suits the business owner. We want to make sure we get them the right plan. They can talk to a lawyer. They can get their contracts and document reviewed. Did you know that even when you put a disclaimer online on your website, you should have a lawyer review it to make sure you're protected? Because that's the main thing. It's about our people. And one of the great services it does is it does debt collection.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, my son's a plumber, and he had a gentleman owed him about $900, and it was about almost 2 years when he called me and said, Mom, I don't know what to do. So he called into the law firm, spoke to a really nice lawyer. They wrote a letter on his behalf, and of course, he got his $900 back.
Isn't that fantastic?
Yeah, and I think lots of times people think, I can just handle it myself. It's my customer. I'm going to call them. They're going to give me the money. But, we all need to be paid for our services. And so it's a nice way to do it. And to take it off your plates, you can worry a lot less and live a lot more.
Well, isn't that the truth? Because, I just celebrated 30 years of entrepreneurship a few months ago. So I can certainly relate. Sometimes when you work in isolation and you have strategic partners, something comes up and you think, oh, geez, I'm really not 100% sure on that. But you fly by the seat of your pants because you're afraid to engage a lawyer because they're so expensive. So I love the idea that you have a tiered program that gives people an opportunity to engage services that meet their individual needs.
Yeah, it's a really genius plan, and I'm proud to represent it because I can give the business owner options, right?
Right. And I love that it covers personal situations too, because, we don't live in isolation. Sometimes our business becomes so entwined with our personal life that, there's lots of carryover between one thing to another. So I love the idea that it's affordable. There's options available, and it gives everyone a chance to sort of connect with something that makes sense for them, their individual needs. So that's a really wonderful service.
It is. And, I work a lot with people that are home-based like yourself and myself, right?
Yeah.
Because you think, you have to have a lawyer, on staff to handle my stuff.
Yeah.
But it's nice because we have a family plan, and attached to it is a home-based business rider so that home-based business person can also get everything that they need. And it's the same as having a small business plan for a much lesser cost.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Now, you've been an enterprise leader with this organization, as you mentioned, for 25 years. Now, I'm sure that, things have changed in business over time, and we've all seen, different rules and regulations that are being imposed that we may or may not be really aware of. Is there an education component that you attend or that you're aware of in order to ensure that when folks are connecting with you, you're pointing them in the right direction?
We are always learning and we get lots of great training. That's one of the things I love about LegalShield and what it does for us. And
Mhm.
I always say to people, you realize that the laws change like
Yes.
all the time.
Yeah.
And so if you use our membership once in the entire year, it pays for itself. So we want people to call in. Our business lawyers are awesome and they'll answer their questions.
Mhm.
Like even when the rules came out about your emails and
Mhm.
spamming people, like we wanted to make sure. And I just would say to the business owner, you need to call the law firm and talk to them and make
Right.
sure you're covered and you're doing
Right.
the right thing.
Right. And that sort of takes away that inhibition, right? Because when you know you feel protected, and so you're not hesitant then to pick up the phone and ask a question because you, as you say, you've already engaged the services, and so it gives you a little bit of peace of mind, right?
Yeah. And it's also an app on your phone now. So we've made it easier for our customers. So, on a Sunday night, you're thinking about, oh, I have this issue I need to deal with. You
Right.
can sit down and type it out on your phone and put in a request. They give you a file number, and the next day you're speaking to a lawyer.
Isn't that fantastic? I mean, there's so many really great products and services that are available. And the gentleman who developed this sort of, opportunity and platform really is quite brilliant in himself. How did you meet them? Like, how did you come connected with their organization? I mean, I'm not asking you to go into your personal situation in terms of what happened in your business, but how did you connect with this service when, you're on one side of the border and he clearly was in the US?
Well, the interesting thing is that I had just joined another company called the People's Network. So what we did was we put a dish on your house and piped motivational speakers into your house all day instead of watching, interesting things on TV.
Ah.
Well, that company shut down, and the two leaders of that company were kind of courting Mr. Stonecipher, who started the company. And so we were invited to go over and join their their sales team because they were looking for sales reps. And that's really how I did it. And honestly,
Wow.
I have a background in banking. I know nothing about legal.
Legal, yeah,
So but I like people and I like helping people. So that's really
sure.
why I did it.
Well, and you know what the really amazing thing is too, and why you're probably such a wonderful representative is you make a connection with the individual business owner. You're not personally trying to offer them the professional services. You're simply making a connection with folks to get to the right person so that they can answer your question. So that kind of eliminates any of the trepidation on your part, right? Because I mean, you're not asked to provide the advice, you're only asked to make the connection,
That's right.
right?
And Trish, in this world, people do business with people they know, like, and trust.
Mhm.
So it's all about building relationships.
So true.
Yeah. And
So
I
true.
find it's gone back to the old way where we have the mom and pop stores where people want to do business with people that they know, like, and trust. So if they know you have a service, they'll say, so what is this thing that you do? And how
Right.
can it help me? Right. And it's the same in your business.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, one of the things that I think that is really most important, and you've touched on a little bit, where you're saying, people want to do business with those that they like and trust. So, how do you create the network? Because I'm sure our viewing and listening audience is sitting here and thinking, "Wow, this is really cool. I've never heard of this before." But how do you make connections with those small business owners, other than, of course, having the various different social media channels which people can connect? But is there specific groups or networking groups or ways in which you make connections with the small business owner?
I personally like to network because I love people.
Right.
So I attend networking events. And if I were to meet you at a networking event, Trish, I'd talk to you about, where you live and what you like to do and all that stuff and build a relationship with you. And I'd say, you know what? Can I just call you and go out for coffee with you next week and we can talk about our businesses?
Right.
So I get a lot of business that way and I get a ton of referrals
Ah,
because once something works, people refer you.
sure, for
I'll
sure.
have people call me 5 years later and say, are you still doing that legal thing?
Really? Isn't that great? Now, let's touch on a little bit about credibility because we all know that, with the changes that we're seeing in business, I mean, these wonderful platforms give us a chance to connect with people worldwide, really. As far as your network or you're willing to go with creating a network, you can make connections with like-minded individuals. So, in terms of credibility, is there a piece of advice that you could give to a small business owner who may be listening to us and they have less than 5 employees or no employees, and they're making connections with strategic partners to build that sort of credibility behind the scenes so that they can offer their product and service with more confidence? Is there something that you could give them in terms of how to build a credibility network? Because that's really what we're talking about, right?
I think it's a matter of really finding the right people that have the same values that you do.
Uh,
And I have this big thing about integrity. So,
mhm.
so I've built like a group of business owners around me that all do different things.
Right,
And if you were looking for something, I'd say, "Hey, Trish, I know this great guy that does this," right?
right, right.
And I also think that when you introduce someone to for their service, it's really nice if you do an email introduction and say a little bit about, like, I've known Trish for this many years. She's this wonderful lady. She can help you. And then I'll say that I just met so and so at a networking group and she really needs your help. So please, I hope the two of you connect and at least have a coffee. And someone taught me that when I first started coming out and doing the networking, and I
Mhm.
followed that system ever since.
And I love your reference to that, because one of the things that we have found that people do with the guest blog on the shareyourstories.online network is they use that as a form of introduction to people's businesses and products and services because of the questions that we answer in the blog. The way in which we include your bio with, your contact information. It's really a great way to say, to your point about the email, I can send something to someone and say, I'd like to introduce you to Dale, and let me share with you a guest blog that she's done on shareyourstories.online, which is going to tell you a little bit about her business and what she does. And they can see your picture. So that's a really wonderful piece, I think, when you're making cyber connections, which we all do, is
Yeah.
having some way other than a website. Because, a website's like an online business card, really, right? And
Yes.
it may not have the exact information. We all have an about us tab on our website so that we're saying a little bit about who we are and what we do, but this kind of gives you a different outlook or a different approach when you're making connections. And I really think I love your point about making the cyber connection and then leaving it up to the two individuals, right? Here's your contact information, take it wherever you'd like to go. So maybe, Dale, one of the things that you do in the credibility factor is you're an awesome connector.
I've been told that.
And it's really important because we need to make connections. And to the credibility factor, you're not going to connect to people that you don't have confidence in terms of making a connection,
Exactly.
right? Which is why I love the email introduction, because obviously you've built a rapport with the two individuals that you're going to connect, and
Yeah.
they know you know them. So there's a trust factor already built into that.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And I think that that's really important in today's day and age when we're trying to expand our networks and maybe collaborate with like-minded individuals. We need that piece that gives us that sense of confidence. And the social platforms that we put and post information on is really great for meeting a wide and varied audience. But those targeted special building relationships, I really think I agree with you. They need to come from a cyber connection or an email introduction. So
Yeah.
kudos to you. I mean, 25 years is a long time to be a leadership, an enterprise leader for someone else's organization, right?
Yeah. I have such passion about the mission and what we're trying to do,
Right.
because so many people can't afford to talk to a lawyer. A lot of people can't even afford to get their will done.
Mhm.
And, we all need one. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's a
And
great way to fix the
it's
problem.
the education component is probably just as important, right? Because we don't know what we don't know.
Yes.
And it's not until somebody draws something to our attention that we have a chance to reflect on that and, oh, geez, maybe I better look into that a little bit more seriously. I hadn't even thought of that.
Yeah.
So is there any types of educational ways in which you post information on social media to folks so that you're kind of educating them with the options that are available before they make a commitment to your services?
I think I found that the best way to introduce someone to our product is to tell them a story. So it's really nice when you meet someone and they have something going on in their life and you can say, "Oh, well, this happened to one of my members or this happened to one of my coworkers that does the same thing that I do,"
Right.
right? So I'm big about telling stories, and the old stories saying stories tell, facts sell,
Mhm,
or
mhm.
stories sell and facts tell. So that's why. And I think people appreciate it more because if you sit down and you blurb off all the benefits, someone will pick one thing and think, "Oh, I already got my will done, so I don't need that."
Right,
Right?
right. I love your say that again for our viewing and listening audience. You just used a wonderful marketing tag. So I'm going to ask you to repeat it again. What did you
Facts.
just,
I
yeah?
said facts tell and stories sell.
Isn't that fantastic? I mean, I think that's awesome. That's a really wonderful way to make, because we're all looking for the connection. When you're scrolling through a social feed, I mean, we're all guilty of this, right? We're like
Right.
flipping through
Yeah.
things. We're not even paying any attention, right? I mean, it's just if the visual doesn't attract your attention, you're like gone on to the next thing. But I think that's a really awesome marketing tactic, and not only just for you and your business, but for anybody,
Oh, yeah.
because sharing stories is really what makes heartfelt connections and makes human connections with people that we can trust so that we can build our businesses. So, what an awesome phrase. I'm going to, one of the things that we do is we share these discussions on our social platforms. And I'm actually going to use that as the leader on the description portion of your particular discussion, because I think it's awesome. I think it's a wonderful way for folks to make a really heartfelt connection, right? I mean, we know what you do, especially now that you've had an opportunity to explain it to us. But this kind of gives them a little bit of insight into the person behind the logo of LegalShield and who Dale is. Because I know you're a really private person, and so am I.
Yep.
So we don't put all that sort of personal stuff in our social feeds. They're more business related. They're more trying to support connections with other like-minded individuals.
Yeah.
But I think that's really a wonderful insight into Dale, because you and I met many years ago at a
We
networking
did, yeah.
event, right? I mean, it's been a long time since you and I have crossed paths. And I know that we've each referred other businesses to each other. But I do think that, getting to know Dale is sometimes just as important as getting to know the company that you represent. Because if they don't trust you, they're not going to connect with your service.
That's right.
Right?
But it's like that in any business, I
It
think.
is. It is. Absolutely. Whether you're an entrepreneur, an enterprise leader, it's all about making those heartfelt connections, right?
Yeah, it really is.
Now, one of the things that we do in the guest blog is we ask folks to share 3 words of advice for other individuals who are reading about our stories. And yours are listen, focus, and love. And I'm curious to hear why those 3 words are important for you.
Well, I have 4 children, and I pretty much raised them on my own. I was a single mom. And actually, when I just became a single mom is when I found LegalShield. So I kind of did it really part-time in the beginning. But I've learned over the years that if you really listen to someone when they're talking and you focus on what they're saying, and it doesn't matter if it's in business or if it's one of your children or one of your grandchildren or your spouse, right?
Mm-hmm.
If you focus and you're present, which I learned a long time ago, being present is something that a lot of people aren't, and you just love everyone, then your life is really good. But if you judge people and, use the opposite of those 3 words, you won't have a great connection with people. So I feel that connecting is a lot about listening and really focusing on what they're saying and, not looking at your phone and all that stuff. And it's helped me to have a really great relationship with all my kids.
And with your customers, because you know what? You really do make heartfelt connections, Dale. I can speak from experience. You really do live by the 3 words of advice that you've shared with our viewing and listening audience, which is kudos to you, because, in this fast-paced world where we've got all these things coming at us from various different directions, sometimes it's really hard to sit back and focus on what's really important. And you've had an opportunity to spend 25 years helping people create comfort with Plan B, which can sometimes be super scary.
Thank you.
So thank you so much for spending some time with us today, because, you've given us some really great nuggets of information. And because I'm present and I've been listening after we're off of the live recording, I'm going to have to get you to share again your little credo there so I can write it down and I don't forget it.
Okay, that's perfect.
Because I think it's a really wonderful way to wrap up who you are and what you're doing for small business owners. So thank you so much for that.
Well, thank you, Trish. It's been great being here today, and you're a wonderful interviewer, so it makes it fun. Thanks.
Thank you so much. Thank you. And to our viewing and listening audience, I'd like to thank you for joining us today for this edition of Keeping It Real, where we introduced you to the person behind the logo. If you'd like to connect with our guest, you'll find Dale's contact information in the description portion below. I'm Trish Tonai, founder and host for the series. And if you're interested in sharing your business story, visit our website at shareyourstories.online. And for other inspirational stories, subscribe to our business mentorship, Keepin' It Real YouTube channel. Thanks again for tuning in, and we look forward to meeting you next time. when we share another great idea.